Hey, how are you doing?
How are you?
Good.
You got all this down there, right?
The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know, right? But we'll be making a step or hitting capabilities with next week with the concert and stuff like that. We'll be trying out some stuff that we haven't used before and using some new programs and equipment. So,
So is the concert going to be in here?
Yeah. So actually, the setup on the Beamer right now is for Shabbat next week, because Shabbat's actually pretty complicated next week too. There's a concert Saturday
For
night.
the MLK?
Yeah, but it's also the concert, like they're combining, it's also like another concert in the sense of Shabbat, because Dan's gonna be here for Shabbat too, so they have, so it'll be Rabbi, Dan, and Cantor on the middle stage there, with where you see the stools up in the Beamer right now. And then the choir is gonna be on the right side. The Promise bands and the chairs behind them there with all the music stands in the back. And then the guest speaker is going to speak from the mobile lectern there, since we're just trying to figure out how to fit everyone, up there. And
So they're having a justice kind of Shabbat on
Yeah, well,
Friday.
it's
It's going to be.
yeah, we're like double booking in a sense. Like we would normally have a guest speaker that's MLK Shabbat,
Right.
but then we're also, because that just happened to be Dan's weekend too. He's also, so it's like we have two. We have a guest speaker and then also guest musicians. So it'll probably be a longer service too.
And then he's doing his concert on Saturday.
Yep.
Right?
And then Saturday there's also in the morning he's leading, or I'm not sure if he's leading per se, but he's participating in Torah study. And then after that there's a kids program with Dan, the kids Shira, like a singing thing that'll be social. Both the Torah study and kids program will be social halls Saturday morning / early afternoon. And then I think he's meeting some of the music team members that Cantor has been developing in the school, that they're going to have some kind of just talk about professional development stuff, things in music.
So they're selling tickets for his concert.
Yep, tickets. So the concert won't be streamed because there's not tickets, and that's part of this thing. It can't be recorded. So in a sense, that's more simplistic in a way because it's just going to be the audio side with Dan. So Friday night though should be pretty interesting.
How are they doing ticket sales?
I think they're doing pretty good. I don't know what the goal was, but I think they're anticipating, from last I heard, this could be updated even more, they're anticipating selling at least 120 tickets. So we're going to open the wall for sure.
Right.
As long as it's not over 200, there won't be any need to make any adjustments of how we're doing stuff. But it's always a good problem to have too, if you have a little notice that you need to expand what you can offer. So.
Right.
And they're doing like an OMA kind of thing with the concert for freshmen afterwards. They're baking and stuff like that. Well, that's why I mentioned Friday, because if you can't, if you can't come to the concert, and it's not streamed, so it's kind of, you got one chance. But if you want to see him, play and perform, you can watch the Shabbat service, whatever you want afterwards. And I didn't realize how many of the songs we do are his melodies, like his way of singing. I was like, we've been doing this for a couple of years, because I know Cantor really likes his music.
Right.
I didn't realize how much stuff is like, that's his tune, to it. I'm like, we do that one all the time. I really like that. So it's nice to be able to see that, come around.
I was just curious.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you doing?
Good. I mean, once they did the stuff on the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Once that
Once the solar was done?
It really hasn't done anything else right.
Yeah, did you get a tour from Dan? Got the IT room?
No. I haven't yet. But once we did that, then there hasn't been any other kind of
No, don't worry. Well, others come up in the future if you want to be more involved. The next kind of big one we're looking at, we're not sure how soon or whatever, but our control system for our HVAC is obsolete. It's been obsolete since like 2021. Honeywell stopped making the components to control it, so we have now at least one controller we've had to buy because we could buy a part, but it's like 3 or 4 times as expensive because it's all like what's left on the shelf. And so it's the whole thing of going to a different control thing and not having to be proprietary because we're stuck now because it's like 1 maker, they decided to stop doing it. issues, like they're not all uniform, they don't all have panic bars, they don't have spot
Yeah.
glasses. Some of them don't close right, not all of them have like keys, you know, and so it's just, you know, the key thing that we did for security is that we didn't have confidence that they would all close appropriately under their own weight for various reasons, and that's our biggest security thing now is just doors accidentally being like left not fully
Sure.
closed. And you'll just happen to like on school, Sunday, there's 100 plus students here or whatever, a parent decides just to leave out a different door, which nothing really necessarily wrong with that, but it doesn't close behind them, then all of a sudden the door's open for who knows how long.
So a couple of years ago, I got a key fob.
Mm-hmm.
Does that still work, or
Yeah.
can I throw them away?
I mean, you can toss it if you don't want it,
But-
but it should still work.
Okay.
And if it doesn't, you can let me know, I can make you a new one, or you can also have a code too if you want. Maybe you already did get a code too, then you don't have to carry something with you. Some people prefer one or the other.
I just had this. I haven't used it for a while. I was curious if it's still.
No, we didn't, I mean, during the pandemic, like when the building was closed, we did like take that offline for a while, but it's all back up and running. You can also too,
So
like
where do
always
you scan it?
So we have 3 access points, doors that allow work on. So there's a side office door, and pretty much there's 2 keypads at each of these doors generally. Like there's an intercom keypad, and then there's so that's like on silver box, and then there's another keypad that's like backlit. It's like blue, like the letters are blue on it, and that's a keypad, but it's also the scanner for the fob. So you can punch your door code in there, or you can hold your fob up to it. It's like both things. And they say there's a little intercom that one door on the other. So side door, front door, and then we recently put one kitchen too, because a lot of people, were having to unload stuff in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's just super helpful. Otherwise, before you have to like park your car down there, walk over there to get buzzed into the office, and then walk down.
Okay.
And,
I was just curious.
Mhm.
Okay, so I can still scan the fob.
Yep, absolutely. There's also the you can also have access to the monthly door code if you didn't have your fob with you. You need to use it through the web page. If you go to the security page, it has
Okay.
that. As long as you're logged in, you'll
Yeah.
see the code for the month.
Okay. Just curious, that's
Mhm.
all.
Code of the month club, huh?
Oh, I saw my key fob. Have you met my wife, Susan?
I don't know if we formally met.
This is our.
Hi, I'm Steven.
Steve runs the building, so when I was on the capital needs committee, he was the guy who was always here making sure the police was needed or not. So, between the overhead stuff and the new carpeting.
Yeah, it's been a busy like 5 years with building stuff for sure. HVAC and new roof and solar, and renovated this space and new AV.
Well, I just wanted to know where you want to sit.
Yeah, tough.
I know Painter always appreciates it when people sit up close,
I will do that, I'm just gonna get some more water. Anyway, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
We have to crowd or something. He's forgotten.
Shabbat, Shalom. See you doing all right? How are you doing?
Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Probably because you have hair.
Yeah.
So pretty sure.
I practically live here.
Well, your house is probably never quiet.
Shabbat Shalom. I'll invite you up to help light, and it really isn't anything that you have to say or do up there, and I'll help lead us all in the blessing. It's just a little bit hard sometimes for me to get
I was driving
over there to over there.
a bunch of my friends that were in town, but they're going to so we had a bonfire.
Hey, yeah.
But it was also really fun. And I came home and I knew it was fun, but so I was and I completely missed the trip to my parents' house. Really? Yeah. You always remember spots.
Shalom, everyone. It's good to be together. You know, it's always takes a bit of time, right, when we come to the end of a week to shed what we need to shed to be fully here. So if you're not 100% arrived yet, that's okay. We have opportunities in our worship and in the music to work on peeling away whatever those layers are that have built around our hearts over the weeks, so we can be fully open and present here together. Let's see if we might be a little bit out of tune here. I'll take it. So I'll say more about this later, but we're anticipating a guest musician joining us next week, Dan Nichols. I'm really excited to say more to you all about that later, but just to say that we'll be doing a lot of his music this evening as well in preparation for his visit next week. So if you don't need any words yet, we're just gonna sing a little nigun that we've been doing the last few weeks. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 da. Ya da da. Ya da da. Ya da da. Ya da 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 da. I'd actually like to invite now, as we continue to welcome Shabbat together, we're going to bring light into our space. I'm going to be talking more about light and darkness and light in particular later on, but to bring light into this space and the light of Shabbat in particular, I want to invite Jake Haydu to come help light Shabbat candles, and there should be both a lighter and matches up there to your preference. And we'll all turn together to page 120 and 121 in the prayer book. And we can light first. And I'd love to invite everyone to join me in the reading toward the middle of page 121. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. We'll continue welcoming Shabbats together with Kabbalat Shabbat, the receiving, literally, of Shabbat's presence. It's marked by psalms that lead up to that arrival moment with Lecha Dodi. But we'll continue with a verse from Psalm 97, Or Zaru Alat Tzaddik. It is in the prayer book, but the English is not. So let's go to the program then on page. I forgot to put page numbers for myself here. 4, thank you very much. Page 4 in the Shabbat program. Next week, we're going to get to do this with the whole Promise Band and choir and Dan. It'll be lovely. Or Zaru ala tzadik uleishrei lev simcha. 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 We must keep our hopes alive. We must raise our voices high. We must hold each other tight. We must stand up in the night and be alive. Or Zaru ala tzadik uleishrei come. We must love and live as one and be alive. For Zaru ala tzadik u'leishrei lev simcha. For Zaru ala tzadik u'leishrei lev simcha. Continue on page 138 in the Siddur with Likrat Dodi, singing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And when we arrive at that final verse, we will rise and face the way that we enter to symbolically welcome Shabbat's presence. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. Kamor v'zachor v'ribur echad, Anu El HaMeyuchad, Adonai Echad, U'Shmo Echad, L'Shem U'Tiferet V'Nitila. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 Shabbat, B'kabela. Likrat Shabbat, Lechuven Elcha, Imekor HaBeracha, Eirosh Mikedem Esucha, Sof Ma'aseh B'machshavat Tchila. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. Hitoreri, Hitoreri, Ba'orech Kumi Ori, Uri, Uri, Shir Daveri, Kevod Adonai Alaich Nika. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. Oi v'shalom, Ateret ba'ala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzola. Kol emunei Am segula, Oi chala, Oi chala. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. Likrat Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yadadai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, B'kabela. I've sometimes spoken about this before, but there are 150 Psalms in the Hebrew Bible, by most countings. a number of them have what we call a superscription. It's like, for lack of a better word, like a title. Like a Psalm of David, or For the Leader, which is an interesting one. But there is only one psalm where the superscription actually says what day it's for. And that's Psalm 92. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, a psalm for the day of Shabbat. And the very next words that come right after that say, Tov Lehodot. It is good to give thanks. The core of Shabbat is taking time for gratitude, to reflect on those things that we're grateful for in our lives. And importantly, it says later on, Lehagid baboker chastecha, to tell of your loving kindness in the morning, when it's light out, when it's clear, and when things are sunshiny. But also ve'emunatcha balelot, your faithfulness in the evening, in the nighttime, in the dark, when things are tougher or less clear. That at the core of it all, gratitude. And Shabbat is our time, our opportunity to set time aside as sacred to reflect on that. So we'll offer Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, Tov Lehodot, on page 140. I'll sing that little superscription, then we'll join together. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, Tov Lehodot Ladonai, Ulzamer Leshimcha Elyon, Tov Lehodot Ladonai, Ulzamer Leshimcha Elyon. Lehagi baboker, baboker chastecha, ve'emunatcha balelot, balelot. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer leshimcha elyon, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer leshimcha elyon. Alei asor, va'alei navel, alei higayon, bechinor, bechinor. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer leshimcha elyon, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulzamer leshimcha elyon, ulzamer leshimcha elyon. Continue with Ma'ariv, with the evening worship proper. All of this up till now has been preparation. I hope that whatever cords may have been like tightening up, or like whatever gunk has built up around your own hearts maybe over the week, that some of it has loosened a little bit. And so we'll invite one another to really pray. Baruch Hu on page 146. I invite those to rise as we are able. All right. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed. Continuing on page 148 with this melody that Dan Nichols wrote for Ma'ariv Aravim. Hear the rolling of time from evening into day and back into evening again. Stars rolling out across the heavens. The moving of time. And all of us within it. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. Bechokma poteach she'arim, ובתבונה משנה עתים, ומחליף את הזמנים, מסדר את הכוכבים, ומשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו, ברקיע כרצונו. Back to the beginning. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. Ma'avir yom u'mevii laila, u'mavdil ben yom u'ben laila, Adonai tzevaot shemo, El chai v'kayam, tamid lochaleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. Then on page 150, we'll read together in the middle of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Ve'ahavatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, page 152. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Ha'ed. You may be seated. And we'll continue together on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom al levavecha, veshinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, b'shivtecha, b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, uvshochbecha, uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot, Bein einecha uchtavtam al mezuzot techa uvish arecha lema'an tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem emet. Turning now to page 157. Let's read responsively in the middle of the page. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages our vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel is, singing on the shores of the sea.
Page 158. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Norat te'ilot, otzef eleh. Norat te'ilot, otzef eleh. Adonai, moloch le'olam va'ed. Malchutecha uvanecha, ukeayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam. Ze'eliyanu ve'amru, Ze'eliyanu ve'amru, Adonai, moloch le'olam va'ed. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. V'ne'emar, Yifada Adonai et Yaakov, uge'alo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. On page 160, another prayer unique to the evening time. Seeking protection from all those things that might keep us awake in the night, whether those are physical dangers or the demons within our own hearts and minds that keep us from getting the true rest that we need. May we find ways of getting that rest that we need and being sheltered in God's shelter of peace so that we can become shelters of peace for others. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom, v'ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. I forgot to give you all the English, but if you know it, you can join in with me. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. 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 Continuing on page 162. Each time we are about to offer an Amidah or a tefillah, an inner prayer, we sometimes have the opportunity to recite a verse that helps to remind us, what is this day that we are marking? Various holidays have different verses that show up. And for Shabbat, it's this. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael, and the people of Israel shall keep Shabbat. A sign between God and the people of Israel for all time. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, dorotam brit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, dorotam brit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. Vayom hashvi shavat vayinafash, v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, dorotam brit olam, dorotam brit olam, dorotam brit olam. And we find that tefillah, that approaching of the moment when we will turn inward into our own hearts. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. The famous famous Jewish philosopher Franz Rosenzweig wrote this little nugget that's in the middle of some very, very dense Jewish philosophy. He talks about prayer as this opportunity to use words and melody and structure to try to find and approach the moment when we no longer need them, to try to find our silence, to try to, it's almost like using these various tools at our disposal until the point where we can just set them down and really go inward and find our silence and share our silence with one another too. So we'll continue for a little bit longer using some words and forms and prayers and get to that space where perhaps we can each find our own silence. So the tefillah, that beginning of the turning inward, is on page 164. And again, I invite us to rise as we are able. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Page 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Anora, El Elyon, Gomel chasarim tovim, v'konei hakol, v'zocher chazdei avot v'imahot, umevi geula livnei v'nehem, leman shemo be'ahava, melech ozer umoshia umagen, baruch atah Adonai, magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah, Ata Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol Ata Rav le'oshia, Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar, micha mocha ba'al gevurot, umido melach, melech meimit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata le'achayot hakol, baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol, ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We've now arrived at that moment where we're each going to try to see if we can find our own silence and share it then with one another. Whatever helps you best for that process, whether that is standing or sitting, exploring the words of the prayer book, or just delving into your own heart. Take some time for yourselves. We'll eventually, you can either, again, explore the words of the prayer book through page 181, or just offer your own personal prayers, and we'll eventually join back with one another in the supplement, I want to say on page 5. you're still offering your own personal prayers, you're welcome to continue. Referring to page 5 in the program, the English here is actually Dan's interpretation of the Reader's Kaddish, which we sometimes, even when we offer it, we kind of just breeze past it. And so he took this exercise of really thinking, well, what do these words actually mean? And not for nothing, Kaddish is often followed by a prayer for peace, so we'll do the same. If you know it and you want to join in, you're welcome to. If you pick up on it as we go along and you want to join in at any point, you're also welcome to. If you want to just listen, you're also welcome to. May your wonder be celebrated. May your name be consecrated. May your brilliance never fade from the magnificent world you made. May your ways prevail in our own days, in our own lives, and in the life of all Israel. And let us say, Amen. And let us say, Amen. May your name receive the same beauty that you bring, though you are far beyond the sweetest song we could ever sing. And let us say, Amen. 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 Ose Shalom bimromav, uyase Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei Tevet. Ve'imeru, Amen. Ve'imeru, Amen. Just as we've offered a prayer for peace, as we say in the text, over Israel and over all who dwell on earth, we also know that each of us individually may have people who we are thinking of, who are in need of peace, of shalom, or of wholeness, shlemut, people who are in need of healing, of body, of mind, or of spirit. We have a healing list that we keep internally here at amongst the clergy. We have not really read that list out loud since we became a live streaming community, just our own sensibilities, but the people who are on the list know that we are thinking about them and praying on their behalf. And there may be also people here in this room who are thinking of individuals or groups of people who are in particular need, would appreciate prayers of healing and wholeness. So if there's any names that you'd like to bring into this space, you are so and most welcome to.
Rabbi Cookie Olsheim, Rabbi Matt Koch, Rabbi Linda Steinman.
Thank you.
Jerry Podgorski.
Thanks.
Those who say and then to Madison.
Whether we've shared names out loud or in our hearts, we hold them all in our circle of care and attention. And on page 371 in the prayer book, we find Mishaberach, a prayer for healing. And we'll sing our strength to them. Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to be able to be here together. As you all may be aware, Rabbi Beich is still out, but he'll be back with us in time for next Shabbat. In lieu of a full sermon or Torah portion, I wanted to share a teaching with you that happens to be one of my favorites. It's related to arguably to this week's Torah portion, or perhaps just to the beginning of the book of Exodus overall. We are, by the way, starting the book of Exodus this week, if you weren't already aware. Some of you have heard me speak before about the various meanings of the word Torah, a word that we often don't translate. It can certainly refer to those first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible and to the physical scrolls like those in the ark behind me. But the root of the word Torah goes far deeper. It comes from a verb, a word that can mean to guide, to teach, to instruct, or even to parent. So when we use the word Torah in this more general way, we're usually referring to some kind of divine guidance, some kind of supernal wisdom. For example, I personally believe that each of us have our own piece of Torah, our own personal piece of Torah that we are meant to share with others over the course of our lives. So understanding this broader notion of Torah will hopefully be helpful, because I wanted again to share with you one of my favorite teachings that might relate to this week's Torah portion, Shemot, where we find ourselves at the very beginning of the book of Exodus. In the mid-18th century, second generation after the beginning of that pietistic revival movement that we call Hasidism, there was a widely accepted notion, at least amongst these early Hasidic Jews, that regarding the exile in Egypt, that what they called awareness, da'at, which they really meant awareness of God, was also in exile. That at the time, the Israelites, we, knew nothing about God or Torah. Building on that shared understanding, we have this teaching that we receive from Rabbi Menachem Nachum of Chernobyl, who is sometimes referred to just as the Chernobler Rebbe. He was one of the disciples of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism. And so the Chernobler Rebbe starts by taking us way far away from the book of Exodus, way earlier in the Torah's history of humanity, in the generation of the flood, when people were saying things like, for example, and here the Chernobyler quotes the book of Job, what is this God and why should we serve God? So even though this was way before Sinai and the quote-unquote Torah had not yet been given in these generations before the flood, the Torah with a little t, the broader idea of Torah, that supernal divine wisdom, did still exist, as it had existed since the beginning of creation. So the Chernobyler refers to that eternal Torah as the power of the maker within the made. All these like fun turns of phrases in Hasidic thought. And that it hadn't yet been clothed in what he calls like worldly forms, right? Like it just existed up like in the heavens, or maybe like hidden in the fabric of creation. There hadn't been actual words and forms given to it yet, as it would at Sinai. So at the time of the flood, people were so wicked that according to the Chernobyler, they had cut the world and Torah off from their connection with God, from their connection to the Creator, that both the world and Torah had been separated from their divine root because people in the world were so wicked at the time, and that is why the flood came to destroy the world. All right, so stay with me here. We're going like way far afield, but he gets to this beautiful point, I want to just get us there. So the flood was the result of the wickedness of humanity, if we're following the teaching so far. And in the process, Torah was separated from its divine root. So where did it go? Well, again, we have in this teaching that it fell apparently into Egypt. Because the Torah in Hasidic thought represents this like awareness of the divine. And so Torah was in exile in Egypt, awareness of God was in exile in Egypt. We finally get there, at least in the mind of the Chernobyler. And so in that thought, in that teaching, one of the reasons that Israel had to go down into Egypt in the first place was to redeem Torah from its exile in Egypt. I get that this is really heady, cosmological thinking, but there's this beautiful idea that there was purpose for the Israelites to go down to Egypt, that there was some kind of awareness of God that had only existed in the ether, in the heavens, and had not yet been given a form in the world, and that the Israelites went down to Egypt so that they could bring it up out of that exile. And that it was only through the whole process of the Exodus, with all of its trials and tribulations, that we were able to bring forth that awareness from exile. So in our time now, we're no longer in any kind of necessarily physical exile. At the time of the Chernobyler, he thought that they still were, because this was mid-18th century in Europe. But even still, each of us, even though we're not necessarily geographically exiled, there are certain, perhaps personal, internal attributes that we might have. Personal attributes that we can use to express our awareness of goodness, of God, of the divine, of Torah, of teaching, that can fall into that low, what the Chernobyler would call like an exilic state. So things like love, fear, glory, they can fall into that low space. Like, for example, if we find ourselves expressing love in harmful or obsessive ways, or if fear overwhelms us to the point of paralysis or hyperactivity, the Chernobyler would say that those are personal traits of ours that have fallen into an exile of some kind. And because then our tradition teaches us that we're supposed to always recall the day that we came out of Egypt, all the days of our lives, the Chernobyler says that when our attributes, when our our capacity for love or our capacity for fear or caution falls into a harmful low space, that our capacity for awareness hasn't. And that if we hold this idea of like the Israelites being able to redeem awareness from exile in Egypt, then we can hold that same awareness in our own lives, that we can know that we can redeem our personal attributes so they can become a force for goodness in our lives and in the ways that we interact with others. You all are being such great troopers through this very winding teaching. In the very last part of that teaching, he comes back to this quote from Deuteronomy that we're supposed to recall the day we came forth from Egypt all the days of our lives. And he says that if it just said the days of your life, it might mean that it only referred to the day and not the night. But that because it has the word all the days of your life, that it meant the night as well. The significance of that, he was trying to at least make a point of, was that day, like we were talked about earlier when we offered the psalm for Shabbat, day can represent those moments when the mind is really clear, when we can really follow our best intentions and our best selves. But holding on to the idea, to the notion that the ability to improve and grow and redeem those personal attributes that have fallen into that low space, that's always available to us. We have to remember those at night too, in darkness, in low places, in spots where we are lacking clarity. That is the way, rooting ourselves in that awareness of our own ability to grow and change and improve at every single moment. That's what enables us to come out of darkness. So we got to the end of the Chernobylers teaching. You all did great. What I love about this teaching, even though I realize that it takes a long way to get to that final ending point, is how much the Chernobler really wanted to try to give people hope. He really wanted to help relieve people of the burdens of guilt or shame when we find ourselves noticing that we're not behaving as our best selves. That we're all inevitably going to find those moments in our lives where we're struggling with our own moral qualities, where we want to overcome the temptations that keep us from acting on what we know are our highest values and our best selves. But the fact that we're aware of those values at all, the Chernobler teaches us, is itself a gift from God. The awareness, we're taught, shouldn't be taken for granted. It is, in fact, half the battle in our effort for growth and self-improvement. So if we can remember that it's always available to us, that we have that capacity at every single moment, then we are already well on our way to liberation. Thank you for letting me take you all through that. We're going to continue in our service, in our worship, with Kiddush, sanctifying this space that we have made together on this Shabbat. I have the fruit of the vine here. The Kiddush can be found way back on page 123 in the prayer book. And I will invite you all to join me as you like. Page 123, Kiddush. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu Zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit Ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת חיים. And on page 586 at the top of the page, we'll continue with Aleinu L'Shabeach. I invite people to rise as we're able. Aleinu L'Shabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינת עוזו בגובי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. Middle of page 591. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. You may be seated. Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the memory of the righteous will indeed be for a blessing. We now take a moment in our service to think of those, to expand our hearts, to think of those who are no longer with us in body, but are certainly with us in spirit, whose memory sustains us and inspires us and becomes part of who we are and how we live our own lives. We have a number of people whom we are remembering here in the Temple Beth El community, people who have passed away recently, within whose period of Shloshim, 30 days we are observing, and also quite a number of people whose yahrzeit and whose anniversaries of passing we are observing on this Shabbat. And there may be others who you are thinking of who you would want to bring again into this space. Recent deaths in our community include, and as I offer names of those who the Temple Bethel community is aware of, if you hear the name of your loved one recited, you're welcome to rise at that time. Recent passings of a teacher of a number of us, a few people here, as well as Rabbi David Ellenson. We remember Lenore Hill, mother of Gregory Hill, grandmother of Marissa, Allison, and Amanda. We remember Rabbi Shimon Pascal, Barbara Casper, Penny Fine, Raya Roginski, and Jennifer Giesfeld. To their names, we tie the names of all of those we've known and loved, and again, especially those whose yahrzeit and whose anniversaries of passing we observe on this Shabbat, including Maurice Albert, A. David Beich, Dante Bove, Samuel J. Cohen, Leon Dizen, Bernice Ehrlich, Elmer Feitlinger, Zoe Garton Stone, Philip Gross, Toby Ann Kahn, Richard J. Kaplan, Helen Kornguth, Donald LaBelle, Michael Lax, Julius Lessman, Frank M. Melnick, Frank Miller, Ben E. Nickel, Paula Sarnoff-Orek, Esther Reitman, Susan B. Rudman, Marguerite Peggy Saker, Rabbi Joseph Schwartz, Judith Silk Sherman, Charles M. Smith, Shirley Rose Solomon, Deborah Sukni, Sylvia Vodovasov Stein, Fran Weiner, Martin Weiner, Sam Winston, and Ruth Zadeband. If there are others present who have names that you'd like to add to our circle of memory, you are welcome to say those names out loud or in your heart. Zichronam livracha, may their memories all be for a blessing. Understanding that there are some who no longer have anyone to stand or to say Kaddish for them, and so that no one person has to stand alone, we rise in community, and together on page 598 offer the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitzgadal v'yitzgadash shemech rabah, Be'alma di v'rach hirutech ve'yamlich malchutech, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shemech rabah mevarach le'alam ul'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal, Shemech dekudsha berichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, amen. You may be seated. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Again. We have a number of people to thank this evening. Gratitude for Mona, who was our greeter this evening and who's helping with various things related to the Oneg, to all of those who are helping with our facilities and technology. Our Oneg this evening is sponsored by our Temple Beth El Sisterhood, the Women of Reformed Judaism. For some announcements of things coming up, let's see. Just to mention, as we usually do, we typically mention when the next B'nai Mitzvah will be occurring. So that will be happening all the way on February 10th, Saturday, February 10th at 10:30 a.m. here in the sanctuary, where we'll be inviting Orly Kodesh, daughter of Shani Ellison and Neil Kodesh, to our bima as a bat mitzvah. Coming up a little bit sooner, this Shabbat, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., there will be Torah study, both in person and online on Zoom, led by Larry Cohn. Next week, oh gosh, if you haven't already been hearing me talk about everything that's happening next week, it's going to be rather busy, hopefully quite a lot of fun, maybe a little hectic, but in a nice way. So we're going to be inviting Dan Nichols as an artist in residence. He has been here in Madison before, about 5 years before I arrived here, but it was only for a single concert. In this case, he's going to be with us for an entire Shabbat. He'll come in even a day earlier before Shabbat to rehearse with some of our volunteer musicians and singers in our choir and promised band. He'll be meeting with me and Rabbi Beit and our educator Kendra Sager to do some visioning work in the community. He'll be leading Torah study or doing an adult ed program on Saturday morning that will be jumping off from the weekly Torah portion. Later in the morning on Shabbat, he'll be doing a program with our young families, with our 0 to 6s and their grown-ups. Hanging out with some of our song leaders Shabbat afternoon, and then concluding with a all-ages concert on Saturday evening. I have been told now that the registrations for the concert Saturday evening have already exceeded 100 people registered, so that's wonderful, and we might be able to do even better. So if you haven't already registered for the concert, there is still time. If you just go to the temple website, tbemadison.org/Dan Nichols, all of the information is there, how to register for anything that you might need to register for, when and where various things are happening. I encourage people to loop into whatever aspect, parts of Dan's visit that are relevant and make sense to you based on who you are and what your family structure is like and all of that. It should be wonderful. Also, on the Friday evening when Dan will be helping to lead worship with myself and Rabbi Beich, along with members of the choir and the Promised Band, we'll also have a guest speaker, Kaleem Kerr, who's the founder and CEO of One City Schools in Madison, in honor of it being the Shabbat leading into Martin Luther King Memorial Weekend. And we'll also make sure that the worship service aligns with some of those sensibilities too, of it being that Shabbat leading into that really important community observance as we honor the legacy of Dr. King. Next, let me see if there's anything else. No, I think that at least that's those. Does anybody else here have any announcements of anything that I've missed, perhaps? The only other thing I will say is that Purim is going to be coming up quicker than you might imagine. And so we will be putting out communication next week with like casting calls for the Purim spiel, information for those who might be interested in chanting a little bit of Megillah. So just keep an eye out for that. There will be some communication coming out next week about that. And if you're even slightly interested in participating in any way, feel free to reach out to me and let me know, and I'll keep you in mind. We'll conclude our service this evening. After our service, we'll be able to, I don't know if there might still be some food left over from the food that was available before the service, so please feel free to partake of it. Otherwise, it can sometimes not necessarily go to waste, but it won't be as good the next time we eat it. So please feel free to do that, and we'll conclude our service this evening on page 625 with Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra le'et nasa b'chefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra. Let's try that together. Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra Ein nasa b'chefzo kol azai melech shemo nikra. Ve'acharei kichot hakol levado yimloch nora ve'hu haya ve'hu hoveh ve'hu yiyeh v'tifara ve'hu echad ve'ein sheni lehamshil lo lehachbira ve'li reishit ve'li tachlit ve'lo ha'oz ve'hamizrah ve'hu eli Bechai goali, B'tzur chevli, B'eit tzara, Behu nisi umanosni, Menat kosi, B'yom ekra. B'yado afkid ruchi, B'eit ishan ve'aira, Be'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li v'lo ira. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone. We'll join one another out. Anyone who wants to continue to hang around in the community court.
Jacob, do you have to register for the Torah study it's doing? Janice doing it? You have to register for the Torah. There is registration.
I think, yeah, I think for the Torah study, it follows some of our normal structure, where like if you're already a regular attendee of Torah study, but like if you're a new attendee for Torah study, then like those folks, there's usually a process where they have to like let people know. I think it's just it's the normal